Welcome back, Health Explorers, to the deep dive here on the HealthStream YouTube channel.
Glad to be back.
We are so excited you're joining us again today.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to dive into these fascinating health topics.
Absolutely. And, we get it. Keeping up with all the latest health information can be overwhelming.
It really can be. There's just so much out there.
That's exactly why we do these deep dives, to give you the most important insights without getting lost in the weeds.
We cut through the noise and bring you what really matters.
Exactly. And today we're going deep on a substance you might have heard of but probably don't know that much about. Methylene blue.
You know, it's funny. Most people think of it as just a simple dye, right?
Yeah, I remember using it in science class experiments or something.
Exactly. But there is so much more to it than meets the eye.
So tell me more. What exactly is methylene blue and why should we be paying attention to it?
Well, as you mentioned, it was originally created as a dye for fabrics. But, get this, it turns out it has a whole host of potential health benefits.
Really? Like what? I mean, it's a dye.
I know, right? It sounds crazy, but stick with me. The thing is, methylene blue's use in medicine isn't new. It's been around for a while, actually, and has a history of being used for various treatments.
Wow, so this isn't some new health fad or anything.
Not at all. In fact, it's so well established that it's even listed on the World Health Organization's model list of essential medicines.
Essential medicines? That's a pretty big deal.
It is. It means it's considered crucial for basic health care worldwide.
That's impressive. So what are some of these essential uses for methylene blue?
Well, one of the most prominent is its role as an antidote. It's actually standard treatment in emergency rooms and critical care units for certain types of poisoning and overdose.
An antidote for poisoning? Wow, that's serious stuff.
It is. And it's so effective that scientists from multiple countries have actually stressed the need for stockpiling methylene blue due to its critical role in these situations.
Stockpiling. That really underscores its importance. So what kinds of poisoning are we talking about?
A key one is something called methemoglobinemia, which is a condition where the hemoglobin in your blood, the stuff that carries oxygen, becomes altered and can't deliver oxygen to your tissues as effectively.
So your blood can't carry oxygen properly. That sounds really dangerous.
It can be. It leads to all sorts of problems, from blue-tinged skin and shortness of breath to confusion, seizures, and even coma.
And what causes methemoglobinemia?
A whole bunch of things, actually.
Mm.
It could be exposure to things like cyanide, carbon monoxide, certain medications, even some recreational drugs.
Wow, that's quite a range. So how does methylene blue help in these cases?
It essentially helps convert that altered hemoglobin back to its normal oxygen-carrying form, reversing the effects of the poisoning.
That's amazing. So it's like a superhero for your blood.
You could say that. It steps in and saves the day when things go wrong.
Now, speaking of superheroes, the source material also mentions methylene blue as a virus warrior. What's that all about?
Well, research suggests that methylene blue has broad-spectrum antiviral activity, meaning it can fight off a variety of different viruses.
Which viruses are we talking about here?
Studies have shown it to be effective against herpes, West Nile hepatitis, C. Ebola Zika, even HIV, and the virus responsible for COVID-19.
That's incredible. So it can tackle a wide range of viral infections.
It appears so.
Hmm.
And what's even more remarkable is that its antiviral power gets a significant boost when combined with specific wavelengths of red and near-infrared light therapy.
So light therapy can enhance its effectiveness.
Exactly. The combination creates a more potent antiviral effect against various pathogens.
That's fascinating. And there was also something about a study involving cancer patients and COVID-19.
Right. There was an observation that none of the 2,500 cancer patients being treated with methylene blue contracted COVID-19. This is, of course, just an observation, and more research is needed. But it does raise some interesting questions about its potential preventative role.
Especially given its effects on mitochondrial function, which is often impaired in viral infections like COVID-19.
Exactly. That's a key area where methylene blue may be able to offer support.
So moving on to another important area, the deep dive also touches on methylene blue's potential for brain health, specifically for conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. What did you find out about that?
Well, the source material highlighted some really intriguing possibilities in this area. You know, the mainstream medical approach to Alzheimer's has largely focused on genetics.
Right. But hasn't there been a growing recognition that there's more to the story?
Exactly. It seems that focusing solely on genetics hasn't led to the breakthroughs we were hoping for. So there's a growing interest in exploring other factors that could be contributing to these conditions, especially metabolic factors.
Metabolic factors in brain health. That's interesting. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. One of the ideas presented is that an excess of certain neurotransmitters like acetylcholine and nitric oxide might actually be harmful to the brain over time.
Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, I guess.
Exactly. And it seems that methylene blue might be able to help regulate those levels. It's been shown to block certain acetylcholine receptors
Yeah.
and may also influence the formation of those tau tangles and amyloid plaques we see in Alzheimer's.
So it could potentially address some of the physical changes we see in the brains of Alzheimer's patients.
That's the hope. There was even a study in 2019 that suggested methylene blue might be able to slow down or even halt the progression of Alzheimer's in some patients.
Wow, that would be huge if it could actually stop the disease in its tracks.
It would be a game changer for sure. And another key aspect is methylene blue's ability to restore function to a crucial part of our cell's energy production machinery called mitochondrial complex 4.
Mitochondria, those are the powerhouses of the cell, right?
That's right. And complex 4 is essential for their function. This complex is often impaired in Alzheimer's, and methylene blue seems to be able to boost its activity. One study even showed a 70% increase in complex 4 activity in rats treated with methylene blue.
70%. That's a significant improvement. So it's not just about protecting the brain from damage, it's also about enhancing its energy production.
Absolutely. And what's really remarkable is that this boost in mitochondrial function has also been linked to a longer lifespan in human cells, at least in lab settings.
So boosting mitochondria could potentially extend our lifespan. That's fascinating. Now, what about cognitive function in general? Could methylene blue give our brains a boost even if we don't have a specific condition like Alzheimer's?
That's definitely a possibility because methylene blue can cross the blood-brain barrier. It can directly access and support brain cells, improving their energy production and protecting them from damage.
So it's like a brain power booster.
In a way. There was even a study that showed a single dose of methylene blue led to improvements in memory and attention in healthy individuals.
Wow, just one dose. That's pretty impressive.
It is. It suggests that methylene blue could potentially enhance cognitive function across the board.
Now, another area where methylene blue might be helpful is in addressing depression. What insights did the deep dive offer on that?
Well, the sources we looked at challenged some conventional thinking about depression. For a long time, the dominant theory has been the serotonin hypothesis, which basically says that depression is caused by low serotonin levels.
Right, I've heard that before, but it seems like that theory has been questioned in recent years.
It has. The evidence for it isn't as strong as we once thought. And some experts now believe that depression might actually be more of a metabolic disorder.
A metabolic disorder, how so?
The idea is that depression could be linked to insufficient energy production in the brain, specifically a lack of glucose, which is the brain's primary fuel source.
So it's not just about neurotransmitters like serotonin, it's about the brain not getting enough energy.
Exactly. And chronic stress, which is often linked to depression, can actually lower our metabolic rate, further contributing to this energy deficit.
That makes sense. So where does methylene blue fit into all of this?
Well, it seems to be able to boost mitochondrial function, which in turn can improve the brain's energy production. It also has some effects on nitric oxide, a molecule that can be both beneficial and harmful depending on its levels.
Nitric oxide again. It
Yeah.
seems to be popping up everywhere.
It really does. And it has a complex role in the body.
Yeah.
At low levels, it's neuroprotective, but at higher levels, it can become inflammatory and potentially contribute to depression. Methylene blue can help modulate nitric oxide levels, potentially keeping them in that sweet spot where they're beneficial.
So it's about finding that balance. And there's also a connection to estrogen, right?
So estrogen can influence levels of serotonin, cortisol, and nitric oxide, all of which can play a role in depression. This is particularly relevant for women who often experience fluctuations in hormone levels throughout their lives.
So methylene blue might be particularly helpful for women struggling with depression.
It's a possibility that warrants further investigation. There have also been studies in animals showing antidepressant-like effects with methylene blue, and some preliminary research suggesting it might improve residual symptoms in people with bipolar disorder.
That's really promising. It seems like methylene blue has the potential to address depression from multiple angles.
It does. It's a very versatile molecule with a wide range of effects in the body.
Now, shifting gears a bit, the deep dive also briefly mentioned methylene blue's potential for pain relief. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. While pain management wasn't a primary focus of the material we looked at, there were some interesting findings that suggest methylene blue could play a role in this area.
Like what kind of pain?
Well, it's been studied for its potential to relieve even intractable pain, such as the oral mucositis that some cancer patients experience during treatment.
That's incredible. If it could help people manage that kind of severe pain.
It would be a huge breakthrough.
Yeah.
There was also a study that showed methylene blue might be able to alleviate the development of osteoarthritis by affecting certain molecules involved in the disease process.
So it could potentially prevent or slow down the progression of osteoarthritis.
Possibly. And its ability to inhibit nitric oxide, which we've talked about before, could also make it helpful for treating migraine headaches.
So a potential all-natural pain reliever for a variety of conditions. That's very promising.
Yeah.
What about heart health? Does methylene blue have any benefits in that area?
It does. The connection to heart health, again, involves nitric oxide. The sources we looked at highlighted that high levels of nitric oxide, particularly in older adults with hypertension, have been linked to an increased risk of death.
Nitric oxide strikes again.
It does. And it seems that methylene blue's ability to inhibit nitric oxide production could be beneficial for heart health. It could help relax blood vessels and improve blood flow.
So it's like a natural blood pressure regulator.
Yeah. In a way. It's also worth remembering that our body's primary way of dilating blood vessels is actually through carbon dioxide, not nitric oxide.
I didn't know that. So the nitric oxide is more like a backup system.
Exactly. It kicks in when things aren't functioning optimally. Now, another factor in heart disease is endotoxin, which comes from bacteria in our gut. Methylene blue has been shown to reduce the negative effects of endotoxin on the cardiovascular system.
So it's a multifaceted approach to heart health. And what about the mitochondria in the heart?
Animal studies have shown that methylene blue can improve mitochondrial respiration in the heart, reduce oxidative stress, and even prevent diabetes.
Wow, it's like a heart health powerhouse.
It seems to be addressing several key factors involved in cardiovascular health.
Now let's talk about a topic that's on a lot of people's minds, cancer. What insights did the deep dive offer on methylene blue and cancer?
Well, the sources presented a really interesting perspective on cancer. They suggested that it might not be solely a genetic disease, as we've long believed, but rather a metabolic disease.
A metabolic disease, what does that mean?
It means that cancer cells have a different way of processing energy than normal cells. They rely heavily on a process called glycolysis, which is less efficient than the way normal cells produce energy.
And this is known as the Warburg effect, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a growing belief that if we can target these metabolic differences, we might be able to develop more effective cancer treatments.
And methylene blue might be able to play a role in that.
It could. One of its key actions is to restore normal mitochondrial function in cells, which could potentially reverse the Warburg effect and make cancer cells behave more like normal cells.
That's amazing. So it's not about killing cancer cells directly. It's about reprogramming them.
Exactly. And that's a very different approach than traditional chemotherapy, which is often very toxic.
So methylene blue could potentially offer a gentler, more targeted approach to cancer treatment.
That's the hope. It's also being investigated for its use in photodynamic therapy, which involves using light to activate a photosensitizing agent like methylene blue to kill cancer cells.
That's fascinating. So it's a multi-pronged approach to cancer as well. Now, before we wrap up, let's talk about safety and dosage. What do people need to know about that?
Well, the good news is that methylene blue is generally considered safe at therapeutic doses, which are typically less than 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight.
But like any substance, too much of a good thing can be bad?
Exactly. At higher doses, it can become toxic, so it's important to stick to the recommended dosage.
And is there a particular type of methylene blue that's best?
Pharmaceutical-grade methylene blue is the way to go. It's the purest form and ensures you're getting a safe and effective product.
And are there any potential interactions with other medications?
Yes, it's important to be aware that methylene blue can interact with certain drugs, particularly SSRI antidepressants. So if you're taking any medications, be sure to talk to your doctor before using methylene blue.
Always a good idea to consult with your healthcare provider before starting any new supplement or treatment. Now, in terms of dosage, are there general guidelines people can follow?
There are. Research often provides dosage recommendations based on body weight. Yeah. And it's important to start low and go slow.
So don't just jump in with the highest dose right away.
Exactly. It's always best to err on the side of caution. And in terms of storage, methylene blue is pretty stable. It has a long shelf life as long as you store it properly in a dark, airtight container away from light.
Great. So it's not too fussy. It sounds like methylene blue is a really promising substance with a wide range of potential applications.
It really does. And it's exciting to see how research continues to uncover its many benefits.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of methylene blue. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
It's been my pleasure. As always, it's great to explore these important health topics.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found this information valuable.
If you did, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the world of health and wellness.
We have so much more to explore together. And remember, this information is for educational purposes only. It's not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice.
Always consult with your healthcare provider before making any decisions about your health.
Until next time, stay curious, stay healthy, and keep exploring.
See you next time.